I feel really honored to be part of this Chautauqua. I have been listening to the lectures and I'm just so impressed with this filling out of Saam Acupuncture. It seems like this beautiful diamond, and that we're looking at it through the different facets of a prism, and just filling out our understanding of the history and the meaning. So I hope here that I have something to offer. Okay, let's see, there we go. Okay, so I'm not going to read this because you all probably already read that, or you can, about me. And I do want to add a little bit about my history. I met Kiko Matsumoto just when she arrived from Japan, and that was in 1981. And so she has been a teacher of mine for many years, kind of was the foundation of my work with Japanese acupuncture. And so there was a strong emphasis on palpation. So that's always been, an interest of mine is palpation. And also, I knew Stephen Birch quite well. And they have, these different books. Oops, they did together, Kiko Matsumoto and Stephen Birch. And these books really got me interested in yin yang and kind of the idea of understanding physiology through numerology. So, I teach a 2-year program, and it starts with us learning physiology, and we do through numerology in the sense that we start with yin yang, and we start with number 1, unity, and go through yin yang, and then to the number 3, and number 4, number 5, number 6, and I've been interested for probably 20 years in the relationship, especially between the number 5 and the number 6. In other words, the Wuxing and the Liu Jing. And so you can also imagine, I think George was talking about this, the excitement I had reading Toby's article when there's an acupuncture system that really integrated 5 and 6. So that just really sparked my imagination, and I've thought of it a lot in relation to herbs, but this started to integrate my herbal understanding with my acupuncture understanding. I just loved Phil Settle's lecture on herbal formulas, and sort of that way of integrating herbs and acupuncture, where for the most part it just felt like completely different hats I'd been wearing, doing acupuncture and then doing herbs.
Going to be exploring the 12 archetypes of the Saam acupuncture system, and comparing them to Jingfang classical formulas, but in particular styles of classical formula use called Yaozheng, herb presentation, and Fangzheng, formula presentation, really popularized in the West by Dr. Huang, among others. And the goal here, and really I came to this conclusion working on it, is that we're not going to be establishing one-to-one correlations. We don't get a cheat sheet that says, every time you're going to use the spleen treatment, this is the formula that corresponds to it. Or every time you're going to use the liver treatment, this is the formula. It doesn't quite work that way. It's not that neat. But we're going to find relationships between parts of the diagnosis from Saam and parts of the diagnosis from Jingfang. And a lot of times there's going to be specific characteristics that match a particular type of formula or herbal approach, but not all of the characteristics. Or a particular formula might match numerous Saam acupuncture approaches, all used together. So the goal, again, is to integrate classical formulas into the practice of Saam acupuncture. There's a little bit about me. It's in the slides if you need to know. And so Saam Acupuncture is something that captivated me and likely captivated all of you if you're here, are this beauty in it where it's an all-in approach. And Toby talks about that. He even uses kind of the poker analogy. You're not hedging your bets. So there's 4 points that you're using in any one of these orthodox treatments, but all those 4 points are working together to produce a single kind of effect, a single outcome. And that makes it very, very powerful, powerfully correct, powerfully right, or sometimes powerfully wrong. And then that feedback is very valuable to us as well, because we can try to correct our own error. Now, many of us are herbalists as well as acupuncturists, and could this idea of being all in apply across modalities?
Few words about the way I do Saam acupuncture, or I learned it. Actually, I studied with several different Korean doctors in Korea since 2002, when I went the first time there to first learn Korean hand acupuncture and later Saam acupuncture. So what I will present to you today is like a mixture of what I learned from different teachers. And I think what I will present is a kind of advanced material in a sense that you need a kind of a solid base in Saam acupuncture and need to understand the basics in order to follow me probably. So we will do over my presentation a lot of challenging thinking, what I call 5-element mathematics. That means we will be jiggling with the 5-element and the 6G aspects of clinical problems and of the theories. And okay, so let's just go to the agenda. Since this is the first presentation in this Chautauqua, and I'm presenting kind of, in my view, advanced material, I will do a quick basic recap of Saam basic theory. So in order to bring us all on the same level. And I will do this quite superficially and quite fast in order to save time. And then there will be 2 main parts of my presentation. The first is how can we combine several Saam acupuncture strategies freestyle. I'm speaking of the 4-point combinations of Saam acupuncture. How can we use several of these strategies in one treatment? And since if we use several of them, the number of points adds up quite quickly. There must be some criteria how we can reduce the number of points. And so I will be talking about this. And the second part of my presentation will be about how can we consider a little bit more than, as far as I learned it in Saam acupuncture, the constitutional aspect of our patients, and how can we integrate this in the Saam 4-point prescriptions. And in order to do this, I will introduce you to the basic theory of Dr. Kim Hong-yong's Sambu acupuncture. And we will use a part of that theory to integrate it in the 4-needle strategies, and then see what will happen if we do this.
So, I just kind of gave it a little thought. What can I share? And it was more, I was thinking back to more when people are starting with Saam and they get confused. There was a great Qiological forum for quite a while, and I think that's now hosted on a website that Toby has. I'm not sure, or maybe you have it, Michael. You put it in the chat. But I think that is a great encyclopedia for the lineage of Saam that Toby presents to us, right? The Buddhist monastic tradition. And on that, that people would get confused. So it was more, I figured this talk geared towards not getting confused in diagnosis. And hopefully we can, share experiences and learn from it. I know every day in clinic, I say I see a miracle, and every day I learn something. Especially in the beginning. I started, January 30th, 2019, I went 100% Saam. A little crazy. But I did it. People say, how do you do that, right? I'm going from Kiko style where you could have like 30 needles and three treatments, right? Two on the front, one on the back, to a one-sided 4-needle treatment. So my current patients definitely had, like, what are you doing? But I found my results were probably better than I was getting before. Would I get it right all the time? No, I didn't, you know, screw anybody up. So it just felt like the right thing to do. And I really learned from that, keeping it simple, seeing how people respond to a channel, how they respond to a treatment. That really taught me a lot about how the channels work in the body. So Toby stresses this in his classes, to keep it simple, keep it simple. One thing I saw on the forums is people then start, kind of make it a little more complicated than they need it to be. They, might start adding in other points, or think about other things in Chinese medicine or other theories. Really important to stick within the framework that he taught, because I trust the monks. They've been meditating on this. It's been passed down, and I think there's a lot of truth to it.
I want to spend the next 2 hours exploring the whole matter of relationship boundaries. I think, in my experience, I don't just think, what I've come to experience in my practice of Saam Acupuncture for the past 4 years or so, has been that it has a lot to offer pertaining to relationship boundaries. And that's what I want to cover in this talk. So let's get started. One of my teachers many years ago said, whenever you give a presentation, always say what you're going to talk about it, and then say what you talked about. So I'm going to start with this overview. We're going to go through all these things over the next 2 hours. We're going to discuss the whole matter of boundaries and relationships between practitioners and patients, but also for practitioners and patients themselves. Then I'm going to explore my own journey a little bit, open up the boundary between all of you and me, and give you some closer look into my own journey and how I've gotten here. Even though we've had remarkable talks preceding mine on the history of Saam, the features of Saam, different versions of Saam, I am going to spend a little time on what I consider to be the key features of Saam Acupuncture as I have come to know it, which is all I have. We're going to spend a little time exploring the matter of science and how science is constructed and how that impacts boundaries. We'll cover some distinctions between Saam lineages that I'm aware of. We'll take a little dive into the development of clinical consciousness as we journey through our clinical travels. Then we'll explore the particular characteristics of the channels in Saam as they pertain to relationship boundaries. And then I'll discuss some cases, first a personal case, and then a bunch of clinical cases. And that should cover 2 hours. Okay, we could stop on this slide alone and spend 2 hours just on this. It's such a profound topic. But it's essential to recognize that a boundary, after all, is an interface. It's an interface between what is revealed and what is concealed. That's the definition of a boundary. And boundaries don't just exist in relationships between people. They exist, all of nature is just boundaries between revelation and concealment. And one could sit and contemplate just that fact alone for a long, long time. But to open it up a bit, I want to discuss and to contrast two very different aspects of reality. I want to discuss two examples of hard boundaries.
So my aim for this collaboration is to try to bridge and bolster the leap from Fa, or the method, to Qiao, which is knowingness. When we learn methods, techniques, and styles, it's usually a lot of background in the development, hows and whys, diagnostic criteria, and treatment conventions. But how do we make the leap from two-dimensional statements of fact into three-dimensional clinical encounters? This comes from developing a knack or a knowingness from practicing the methods. Another layer of this evolution is the development of awareness of self to become a better instrument in the treatment room. So, first point, seeing the archetypes in real time. Sometimes when a presentation is gross and you get that, aha, it's so obvious. This is a perfect example of whatever. It also engenders a lot of confidence in your knowingness, but more often than not, just like any other method, be it TCM, Tong, classical, the difficulty ensues when multiple presentations layer and bleed into one another, creating a muddy presentation. Because let's face it, more times than not, people are complex. This creates doubt and chips away at our knowingness. And it also, in real time, creates a little bit of fluster. So the second question I have is, how do we negotiate and honor someone's individuality and treatment plan if we admire, feel aversion towards, or are just confused by certain attributes that are presenting? We have all had patients that we feel totally in sync with, or maybe just we don't like very much because their belief systems are diametrically opposed to ours. Or maybe we're just confused and can't find any low-hanging fruit to commit to in the treatment room. Then what? My third question is, how do we grow our own capacity to see individuation and the opportunities to grow potential when we're trained to focus on pathology? How do we handle our own biases and the urge to moderate excesses when the patient might see that excess as a coveted attribute?